Hey everyone! If you're looking to make your German sound less like a textbook and more like a real conversation, you have landed in the right spot. Today, we are cracking a secret code, one of the simplest yet most powerful shortcuts to sounding more natural in German, prepositional contractions. You've probably noticed this, right? You hear people say things like am Montag, and you think, wait, shouldn't that be an dem Montag? It's a super common question for learners. Well, we're going to clear that up for good today, because understanding this little trick is a huge step toward real fluency.
Okay, so what are we even talking about here? At its core, it's really simple. A prepositional contraction is just what happens when two words, a preposition and an article, get kind of squished together into one new, shorter word. You know, it's like how do not becomes don't in English. It's all about making the language flow better.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll cover the basics, the what and why. Then we'll get into how they actually work. After that, the really important part, the rules. We'll see them in action, talk about when not to use them, which is key, and then wrap it all up with the one big takeaway. Ready? Let's do this.
So how does this all happen? It might seem a little mysterious at first, but it's not magic. It's actually just a super simple formula. Check this out. It's really this straightforward. You take a preposition, say an. You add the article it needs, in this case, dem. Then you just merge them. An plus dem gets you am. Boom. That's it. It's really that easy.
Now, let's look at the greatest hits. These right here are the ones you are going to see and hear all the time. Endem becomes am. Indem becomes im. Zudem becomes zum, and zuder becomes zur. Seriously, if you can just get comfortable with this list, your German will immediately sound a whole lot better.
Okay, so we get what they are and how they're made, but here's where it gets interesting, knowing when to use them, because this isn't always just a style choice. Sometimes you absolutely have to use them. So let's break it down into two main categories. On one side, you have the situations where using a contraction is pretty much required. It's just how the language works. Then, on the other side, you have times when it's optional, and you can actually choose not to use one for a specific reason.
Let's start with the big one, time expressions. This is non-negotiable. When you're talking about days of the week, parts of the day, months, seasons, you use the contraction. It's always im Montag, im Januar, am Wochenende. A native speaker would almost never say an dem Montag. It just sounds wrong.
The other big required category is fixed expressions. You should think of these as little vocab chunks where the contraction is just part of the phrase itself. You can't separate it. You know, like zum Beispiel for example, or zum Glück for fortunately. They're a package deal.
All right, enough with the rules on a slide. Let's see how this stuff actually works out in the wild. In sentences you might actually say. When you're talking about going to a place or a person, zu is your go-to preposition, and it almost always contracts. So you don't go zu dem Arzt, you go zum Arzt. You don't go zu der Schule, you go zur Schule. It makes it sound so much smoother. And here's a perfect example putting it all together. Michael geht am Montag zur Schule. Look at that. Two contractions in one short sentence. You've got am for the time and zur for the destination. This is what normal, everyday German sounds like.
Now, in is another really useful one, and it's a bit of a two-for-one deal. You use it when you're going into a place and when you're already in it. So you go ins Kino, that's a contraction of in das. But once you're there, you are im Kino, which is in dem. See that subtle shift? It's really important. So if you want to say Li Wei is heading to the movies, the most natural way to say it is Li Wei geht ins Kino. Saying in das Kino would sound a bit stiff and overly formal. Nobody really talks like that. And of course, there are plenty more of these. You'll hear them everywhere once you start listening for them. Ans Meer for going to the sea, vom Lehrer for something from the teacher, beim Essen for while eating. They're just baked into the language.
Okay, this is just as important as everything we've just covered. Knowing when to use them is great, but knowing when not to, that's how you really start to sound like you know what you're doing.
Right. Some combinations just don't contract. You have to keep them separate. For instance, we go zur Schule, but we are in der Schule. See? No contraction for in der. It just stays as two words. Same goes for an der Universität. It's best to just memorize these as set phrases.
And now for the pro-level tip. Sometimes you will deliberately not contract to put extra emphasis on a noun. So, Instead of saying ich bin im Haus, you might say ich bin in dem Haus. By separating them and stressing dem, you're basically pointing a finger and saying, I'm in that specific house, not the other one. It's a really cool way to add emphasis.
So, we have covered a lot of ground. The what, the how, the when, and the when not to. Let's boil this all down to the one single idea I want you to walk away with today. Here's the bottom line. Using these contractions isn't just about being grammatically correct. It's about sounding natural. It's about rhythm and flow. This is the secret code that closes the gap between sounding like a learner and sounding like a speaker.
And there you have it. The code is cracked. Mastering these tiny little words is a total game changer, and it will do wonders for your confidence. So, my question for you is this. Now that you know the secret, where are you going to use it first? Thanks for tuning in.